Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Welcome back to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Oglinski. We're here with our final segment with Mr. Travis Barrick. He is the Republican candidate for the Attorney General's office. All right, well, we were just talking during the break, and you had mentioned that you used to run a homeless outreach or a homeless center?
A homeless outreach. It was basically street-level contact with the homeless population in San Diego County when I was living down there.
And how long did you do that for?
6 years, my friend.
6 years, and then how was this all funded?
It wasn't.
Was it funded?
No. The whole point was we were a contact agency to try and recruit basically homeless individuals and steer them into recovery programs, which were funded. So this is on the streets.
Was it substance abuse, but then also were you trying to steer them into like getting back into the workforce, or?
Well, that's workforce is secondary or tertiary down the line.
Right.
First, it's dealing with substance abuse. A lot of them were vets, and so we were trying to steer them into the Veterans Administration. I do practice veterans law now.
I saw that. In fact, I think you do appeals work.
I'm licensed before the Court of Appeals for veterans claims.
Okay.
I've had one case up there so far. So anyway, it's kind of just the do-gooder side of me, and it didn't completely beat it out of me, but it certainly tempered my views on the homeless by actually interfacing with them on a regular basis.
It's I used to do a lot of work with a company or an organization in Vegas, and the same thing. It leaves a mark on you. It certainly grounds you, but then you also see some of the realistic issues that they're facing as a society in general. But that's another conversation. Let's get back. Right. Let's talk about some of your platform stuff. Anyway, so
why am I running? That's what you wanted to ask me.
Exactly. Why are you running?
I have more courage than sense. Most candidates decide a year before the filing deadline whether or not they're going to run for an office like this, a constitutional office, specifically the Attorney General's office. And a year before the filing deadline, there were 4 substantial lawyers, Republican lawyers in the state whose names were floated, and all of them opted out for, I think, good reason, because that was a month after Obama was inaugurated, and Ms. Masto didn't have any of her notorious missteps that we've been discussing. And so it looked like it would be futile to run against her a year before the filing deadline. But in the following year, things changed significantly. And on the last day to file, 5 minutes before the closing of the filing deadline, that's when I filed, because nobody else had filed to run against her. And I don't believe she deserves a pass. Somebody had to challenge her, and I was willing. So that's why I'm running, because somebody had to run against her.
Well, good for you. Go for the fight. So let's talk about this platform that's been created since you filed at the very last minute, as you'd said, because somebody needed to be here to advocate for, I guess, a more conservative representative with the AG's office. One of the things that you've pointed out is a limited constitutional government. Explain.
Well, the Constitution is a barrier against an over-encroaching federal government. And the point is that our federal government is granted certain powers enumerated in the Constitution, and they're limited to exercising those powers. And the resurgence of the view that the federal government should be kept within those bounds is one of the reasons why I have a chance at actually winning, because people that believe in an ever-expanding federal government are right now in power, and those of us who chafe at that notion are now animated and agitated to push back against that. And so in terms of a limited constitutional government, it means holding the federal government within its bounds. Same is true on the state level too, but not nearly as notorious.
Sure. Well, I mean, what we'd spoken about earlier in the second segment, as far as, saying an overreaching power, and maybe that's something that it would incense you.
It would, and as a Nevadan, I'm incensed that the federal government has exercised so much unrestrained power here in the state, both over Nevada land, and it is still Nevada land, even though the federal government claims jurisdiction, but also telling Nevadans how to run our state. I'm offended by the suggestion that Nevadans don't know how to run their state without federal help. OSHA came into Nevada and ambushed our state program. And the end game was now OSHA has a federal office in Las Vegas.
Yes, they do.
And so I take umbrage at the idea that Nevadans can't run the state themselves.
Well, that also would lead to, well, I should say it doesn't lead to, but fiscal responsibility in the state is also a very hot issue right now. Obviously, with seeing the economy in the toilet, and then also I think we have the record rate right now for foreclosures. So fiscal responsibility on a personal level and also on a state level, you said is something very important to you.
Certainly. Again, one of my knocks on the public sector is that people get paid for being busy and not productive. But Nevada shouldn't be broke. We're sitting on a gold mine of resources that are underutilized because of encroaching environmental movement and other kinds of movements that are a tamp or a drag on our economy. And our government does not know how to live within its means. And I think that state government should be restrained to live within its means.
How do you explain having a Republican governor, but yet having such a spending issue right now within our state?
That's easy. We have a democratically controlled legislature who believes that you can tax and spend your way out of an economic downturn. And remember, the current economic downturn was actually created by a Democratic Congress during the Clinton administration when they lowered the threshold for qualification for home mortgages, which created the bubble.
Right.
And so the democratically controlled Congress created the problem. Of course, they try and lay it on at the feet of Bush and the Republicans, and now they're the saviors coming in with more regulation, which is what screwed it up in the first place. I mean, they created
So you're
this problem.
still in support of deregulation?
Certainly.
Okay. Well, we're coming to the very end here. Anything as far as tell our viewers how they can find out more about your campaign, what they can do to donate or volunteer, you know?
Well, thanks, Mike. All those things are on my website. I'm easy to find on the web. It's travisbarrick.com. There is a donate button prominently displayed on the front page.
Big red
Matter of
button.
fact, it's on every page. I do need money, although I don't need as much money as Miss Masto has to run a competitive campaign. I appreciate everybody's support. There's a place to volunteer. I do have an office in Las Vegas on West Charleston, and I'm honored to be the Republican candidate for the Attorney General.
Well, Mr. Barrick, I appreciate you being on tonight. Thank you so much, and good luck with your campaign. Again, you can go and check him out, www.travisbarrick.com, or you can actually call our firm, too, if you want more information as far as getting a hold of his campaign. We'll be back with one quick segment where we can talk about some of these financing options that have just come into play for our office. Be right back after this commercial.
Court reporter with Stovall and Associates.